this is, we're extremely appreciative that you're taking time out of your day to spend with us. We are interested in your input and your thoughts. Few housekeeping notes. If you would please, communication over Zoom is really tough. And so as opposed to sitting across the table where you can read facial expressions and body language and whatnot, it's really tough to do on Zoom. So if you would, leave your camera on. Certainly understand if there's a reason why not, but we would prefer that you err on the side of using it so that we can truly communicate as a group. So there's point one. Point two is Patty's going to get into some ground rules during our conversations and how we move forward. But what I would ask is that everybody recognizes there's lots of ideas here, and nobody has a bad idea. What we want is ideas. We don't want to debate them right now. We want to get them all on the table. So if you would please just respect each other, share your thoughts, share your ideas, and don't second guess yourself. Patty, is that fair?
That's, yeah, perfect. Perfect.
So again, thank you for making the time. And Patty, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Steve, so much. I appreciate it. So welcome, everybody. Again, I'm Patty Gentrup with KU's Public Management Center, and I'm here with my colleague, Bree Youngeberger, and we are Youngeberg. Sorry, I put a little extra ER there, Bree. And we are really pleased to be working with the Topeka community on really identifying what you'd like to see as you chart a path forward. So with that, let's first kind of talk about what to expect from this evening, late afternoon, early evening. And first of all, I would like to mention that we are recording this, and we will make sure to put this on. I think we'll be able to get it onto the website tomorrow. So just so you know, we are recording this. So we had originally planned to do these in person, and because for obvious COVID reasons, and had a lot of questions of people who wanted to be involved but didn't feel comfortable gathering. So that's why we're doing this via Zoom. But that having been said, as Steve noted, first of all, we do ask that you make sure that your camera's on if you feel comfortable doing that, to kind of build that community. And at the same time, we're going to be doing introductions of one another. Hopefully you saw that on the agenda packet that was sent out. And so that's really to give a sense of who's in this virtual room as you come together through this process. Then I'll be talking about giving a process overview. So really what the objectives are for this process and how you are going to be providing input to the governing body regarding priorities for Topeka. We understand that we have some folks in the room who have a lot of background in infrastructure, right? We also have some people in the room who don't have that much background. And so we want to make sure that we all kind of at least start from the same kind of foundation as possible. And so Adam will be giving you an environmental scan, giving you some information generally about Topeka's budget, but then also specifically about some work that's happening in the infrastructure area. We'll then talk about what the future might look like for Topeka specifically, and you'll hear me say probably several times throughout the time that we're together, we're specifically talking about infrastructure. So there's a lot that happens to build a community, but tonight we're specifically focusing on infrastructure. So if we have success, what does that look like for Topeka? And then if we identify what success looks like, we start talking about, okay, how do we get there? Okay, so what are those specific goals and objectives? And that's where Steve was saying, when we get to that point, this is really, this is brainstorming and putting all issues on the table. When you're in your small groups, it's not a time to debate whether or not that's a valued goal, et cetera. And then we will be engaging in a priority setting exercise. We've had 2 of these meetings so far, and what we've learned is we were too aggressive in thinking that we could kind of get to that priority setting exercise by the end of the evening. And that in no small part is due to the great ideas that are being shared by the community members. And so really to give those ideas their due and thoughtful consideration as we consider how, well, this is the same suggestion as this one, or how might we combine these to a more overarching idea. We won't do that until, frankly, after you're done, we stick on together and kind of work through those. And then we will be sending out polling for tomorrow. So that will help you to go through that priority setting exercise. So before we get into those introductions, are there, I'm sorry? Are there any questions related to the process itself that I can answer for you? Okay, hearing none. With that, let's go ahead and find out who's in the room together. And so again, we're going to have everybody on the screen introduce themselves. And first of all, we just want to know, of course, your name and then your position or affiliation. And for staff, that might be your position in the organization. For citizens, it might be the neighborhood that you're in, or why you're interested in infrastructure, or a group that you belong to. And then your hopes for the process. And really, the hopes for the process can either be just for tonight as we talk about infrastructure, or for as we go through this entire priority setting process. Okay, and so, and also because of the numbers of folks that are with us tonight, we do ask that you take like no more than 30 seconds as you're introducing yourself. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and start with James. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Jackson.
Oh, wow. Okay. So my name is James Jackson. I'm the Director of Public Works. I've been here with the city, 9 months now, everybody? And looking forward to watching this process unfold. And as important as our team here with the city, the residents participate and give us an idea of their expectations.
Okay, great. Thank you, James. Kim.
My name is Kim Dietrich. I work at Topeka Independent Living, and my hope is that we make sure people with disabilities are included in the budget.
Great, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kim. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gretchen.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Speicher. I'm the Director of Communications for the City of Topeka. And my hopes for this process are to listen, learn, and see how I can support all of your efforts.
Thank you, Gretchen. Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Yolrig. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works. Really just here, I'm sorry, that's why I'm muted. And just here to kind of hear what the priorities are and get a different perspective from the citizens so that we can help execute against it.
All right, great. Thanks, Hannah. Kalea. Oops, we might have to come back to Kalea. Caleb. Caleb? Maybe it's the K's. Maybe that's Sylvia.
I'm Sylvia Davis. I work in utilities in the operations group, and I'm excited to be here and kind of see how we can fold expectations for this budget process into our everyday maintenance and operations.
All right, great. Thank you, Sylvia. Nicole.
Hi, I am Nicole Malott. I'm also with utilities. My areas are the budget and finance matters for the utilities. So I'm really interested in how and understanding how the community wants to see our budget presented and how they want it tracked. We have a lot of good things going on in the utilities, but as in anything, there's always room for continuous improvement. So I'm excited for this process just to make sure that we get the community what they would like to see and that they can feel confident in that process and those results that are presented.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nicole. Josh.
Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Mcinerney. I'm a financial analyst for the city. and I'll be one of the three facilitators today. And then my hopes for the process is just getting a better feeling for what the citizens want in order to budget to make the city of Topeka a better place.
Great, thanks, Josh. John Williams, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. Didn't know if we have, so a lot of times we have more than one. Oh, we do have more than one John. So John Williams. Oops, you're on mute. Oh, John, I'm sorry, you were on mute. So
you're talking to me? I'm John Moyer.
No, John Williams.
Okay.
I'm talking to John Williams. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, John Williams, John Q Public. Hope for the process is just to be a positive contribution to the desired objective, which is for benefit for all citizens of the city of Topeka.
Absolutely. Thank you. We appreciate John Q Public. That's why we're doing this. So thank you so much for being here. Darren.
Yes, Darren Brennan, managing partner for ABC Supply here in town. We've been operating since 2006. So I've been a Topekan since 2006. And just want to have a front row seat for the budgeting process in the city of Topeka. I've never participated in anything like this, but don't mind lending my ideas to it, and interested in affordable housing and public transportation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Darren. We're glad to have somebody who's never been a part of something like this. So that's, getting more people engaged in their communities is so important. So we're glad you're here. Also, I will tell you that the tiles have been moving around on my screen. And so I hope to hit everybody. And if I don't, please make sure you speak up, or staff point out folks to me if I miss them. So Sam.
Hello, my name is.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, my name is Samuel Paulum. I am actually a student at Washburn in the public budgeting class taught by Clark Duffy. And tonight I'm here to just get a feel for how the budget system or the infrastructure budget process works.
Oh, great. Yeah, great, Samuel. So we have had Mr. Duffy's class has had several students who have participated in the last couple of meetings as well, and bring a great a unique perspective to these conversations. And so we're certainly glad, not that they're just kind of observing, but we've had them actually participate. So Samuel, we're glad you're here. Adam.
Hey everyone, my name is Adam Vaughn. I work in the budget office for the city. And like Josh, I'll be one of the facilitators for you all today. And host for this process. This is our third priority meeting that we've had, and we've had a lot of great success so far. And so we're just hoping to continue to build on it so that we can continue to offer the services that the citizens of Topeka want. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Bisbee. I'm a public administration student at KU, and I'm also currently an intern with the city. I'm just really excited to engage in this process and use what comes up in conversation in my future work with the city.
Great, thanks, Mary. Mike S.
Hi, my name is Mike Spatafor. I am president of the Historic Old Town NIA, and I'm also a transportation planner.
Oh, great.
I've lived in Topeka for a little over 2 years.
Great, yeah. Thanks, Mike. Welcome. Deb Miller.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Miller. I'm currently the director of the KU Public Management Center. So Patty and Bree are my colleagues. So I'm very happy to be here tonight and see how this whole process is working out. I am a citizen of Topeka and have been for most of my adult life. And I have a background in transportation. So I was particularly interested in participating tonight. Thank you all.
So she told us that she's actually participating and not checking in on us. So we hope that that's the case. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. I am not a spy. I'm a participant.
That's right. She's going to be a full participant. So we're glad to have her here. Okay. So let's see. Joe.
Yes. Hi. I'm Joseph Ledbetter. I'm a local citizen here. I'm an attorney. I'm a graduate of the MPA course at KU. I am on the board of the Metropolitan Transit Authority. And I've been very interested in the budgeting of the city of Topeka for probably the last 7 years. I speak at a lot of the budget meetings.
Okay, great. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Wright.
Hi, I'm Debbie Wright, and I am with Topeka Independent Living Resource Center, and I am here just like Kim to represent, disability issues.
Great, welcome. Braxton. Oh, hi Braxton, you're muted.
Thank you, Betty. Yeah,
you're welcome.
The utilities. I am participating in this because I am very interested in the comments of our community so that we can be responsive to the needs of our customers. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Braxton. Terry. Terry Roberts. Hi.
Hi, I'm just another citizen. But I do chair the Shawnee County Parks and Rec Advisory Committee for, trying to use our city to attract more people to come here to work and live. So I wanted to hear all the comments that were being made and, what direction you all are headed. That's all. I am simply an observer. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you. Let's see. Robert, I don't think we've heard from you, have we?
Not yet. I'm Robert Bidwell. I'm the current acting interim city engineer. And I just, my hope is to, I'll just make sure that the work of the engineering department is in line with the expectations and needs of the public and the stakeholders.
Great, thank you. Tony.
I'm Tony Trower, the Deputy Director of Operations, and I'm very interested in hearing what the constituents of the city of Topeka have in mind and working with them moving forward with the infrastructure in the city of Topeka.
Great, thanks, Tony. And let's see, Kalea.
Yeah, sorry about that. My name's Kalea Powley. I am the grants administrator for Topeka. I have been here for a whole week, so I'm really excited to be here, and I am just one of the facilitators for tonight.
And let's see. Caleb, are you with us? Okay, did I miss anybody?
Yes, me.
Oh, John, sorry. Thank you so much for speaking up. I apologize. Thank you.
John Moyer. I'm the president of the East Topeka North NIA, and I want to learn more about the budget process regarding infrastructure. And I'm here to advocate for the neighborhoods.
Great. Thank you, John. Sorry, John, you had kind of moved all over my screen. So thanks for speaking up. Anybody else? Okay, well, great. Well, thank you so much. And so you see, we have none of the elected officials were able to join us tonight, but you see, we have a great mix of citizens and of staff. And so several of the staff members indicated that they are here to help facilitate in the breakout rooms and help with those discussions. Other staff members who will be in the breakout rooms with the citizens are there to be active participants in those discussions. And so certainly, while they'll be there to answer questions that you have, perhaps about the infrastructure and capital budgeting process, they also will be putting ideas on the table. Okay, and so that I just want to make it clear that that's their role as well, because that's the way that this process has been structured. And so let's go ahead and talk then a little bit more about kind of what the process looks like. So for the 2022 budget, the governing body identified 5 distinct priorities that you see listed here on your screen. And the one that we're discussing tonight is investing in infrastructure. And while they identified those priorities and some fairly broad general goals within each of those priorities, they also said that they wanted to really get some community input, some community engagement in identifying what ultimately the city should be doing. And so that's why we're engaged in this process. And so first of all, what we want to really identify is what success looks like in each of these 5 categories. And so what if we talk about infrastructure tonight, really, what does it mean in terms of what we're trying to achieve? What really will that outcome be? From there, then we will be identifying specific goals and objectives, and then identifying what you say are those priorities. We're going to be having 6 workshops. And so, as I mentioned, there's five different categories that we're talking about. So we're having 5 identical workshops with a different focus area. So it's the same agenda, it's the same process, it's the same conversation, but with 5 different focuses. The final workshop then will be, actually mark your calendars if you haven't already, on March 10th at 4 o'clock. And that's when we are anticipating bringing everybody together. So everybody who's been a part of any of those 5 previous workshops will be invited to, first of all, review the work of your community, your other community members, and then to help us really kind of hone in on ultimately, what the governing body should be focusing on. As I mentioned, we have participation from 3 different stakeholder groups. First of all, the top of the list are citizen stakeholders, and representing yourself, the organizations that you work for, the organizations you volunteer in, the groups that you advocate for. And so that's really so important to this process. Elected officials are also participating in some of the work groups and bringing their ideas forward for consideration. And then staff, as I had just mentioned a minute ago. So here's the calendar for you. So you see here we are on February 3rd. I'm not sure how we already have gotten to February, but February 3rd, investing in infrastructure. The next couple of weeks, we'll have the 4th and 5th of those first 5 workshops, and then we'll all come together again on March 10th. So I want to be kind of clear in terms of what we're getting to with each of these workshops. And so this is specifically focused on infrastructure. So that was a priority established by the governing body, infrastructure. We're going to be, what we're going to be doing tonight, first of all, is identifying kind of goal categories within that overall infrastructure priority, and then objectives within each of those goals. And so I put here simply for just for illustrative purposes, that a category might be transportation, and an objective might be to enhance the street maintenance program. And so I'll bring this graphic up a couple of times throughout the evening so you can kind of see where we are in terms of this process. And again, lastly, we will get through to identifying possible objectives tonight. It won't be until tomorrow that we'll be asking you to participate in a priority setting exercise. And what we'll be doing, I don't know that I mentioned that earlier, but we'll be sending to you email with links to those polling, and then just asking you to participate. We'll give you, tomorrow's Friday, we'll probably give you till middle of the next week, but it's really, frankly, not a difficult procedure. So with that, any questions, again, regarding the overall process? Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who will be providing to you all the environmental scan related to infrastructure.
Thanks, Patty. Okay, so for this presentation, I'll try and keep my thoughts brief so that we can leave time for questions. But like Patty said, really the purpose of this is to kind of set the stage of where we're at currently as a city with the different services that we're offering in regards to investing in our infrastructure. So to start, I'll give kind of a general overview of the city's operating budget. The city's operating budget is a total of about $339 million. And of that, about $98 million is part of the city's general fund. And so the city's general fund is the main operating fund that funds city services throughout the city. And by Kansas law, the general fund has to be presented as balanced each year. And that means that revenues and expenses balance each other out. So you can see in the 22 budget, that $98 million was exactly the same. And so we've done some modeling of our city's general fund and found that our expenses are outpacing our revenues. And so what this means is that we'll have to make some difficult decisions about how to keep our budget balanced. And so that's a big part of why we're doing these meetings, is to find out what the priorities of the citizens are to be able to make those decisions with more information. To go a little bit further into our revenue sources, this is the total $339 million budget where the revenue sources come from. In particular, I want to talk about property tax. So in the general funds budget, which was the $98 million, property tax makes up about a third of that budget. And so property tax is the revenue source that the city is able to control the most, because each year the governing body sets the mill rate that will be levied on properties each year. For each dollar of property tax that citizens pay in Topeka, only 25% of that dollar goes to the city. And so while it is the most controlled revenue source by the city, it's not a lever that's easily pulled, because the city understands that there's a lot of other competing entities that also use property, not competing entities, so that's the wrong term, but a lot of other sources that your property tax dollars go to. So in the fall of 2021, the city conducted a citizen satisfaction survey, and the citizens responded the three best reasons to live in the city of Topeka was the cost of living, affordable housing, and quality housing. Additionally, the survey gave areas of emphasis that the city should place, with number one being maintenance of streets, which is obviously very pertinent to the current workshop that we're in. Second was enforcement of codes and ordinances. Third, effectiveness of communication. Fourth, overall quality of water and sewer utilities, which again plays a part in this workshop. And fifth, overall quality of police services. Each year that the governing body sets its budget priorities, they also have goals associated with them, which is what we're getting input in today to develop some of the goals for this next year. For 2022, the goals that the governing body adopted were to master planning for all facilities, including offices, parking garages, fire stations, law enforcement center, public works, and utilities, itemizing priorities for citizens, city building needs, and cost effectiveness to be developed by year end 2021. Second, established long-term comprehensive solutions for all city infrastructure, including streets, utilities, facilities, and alleys. Continue to evaluate adequate funding level for utility capital needs, and continue to invest funding from multiple sources to address street maintenance and strive for a pavement condition index of at least 60 with a goal of 70. So these are some of the current initiatives that the city has in regards to investing in our infrastructure. And this is not a comprehensive list, but this gives a good idea of where we're at. The first being the council's infrastructure committee. So this council meets monthly to talk about the various projects that are going on within the city's public works and utilities department. We have our Fix Our Street sales tax, which was approved by the voters in Topeka in 2009, which is a special half-cent sales tax to fund road improvements. And so each year, this fund brings in about $13 to $15 million, which is directly used to fix our roads. PCI, which was mentioned in one of the goals, is Pavement Condition Index. And so this is a tool that is used to evaluate the condition of roads. And so PCI scores range from 0 to 100 and helps us to be able to prioritize which roads are in the most need of maintenance. So in the environmental scan, I did have a typo or a mistake. Main breaks is last 10 years is the average, and that often fluctuates due to you get higher when there's droughts and extreme temps. I just got an internet connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, so Adam, I think I don't know if the rest of you at least for me, it stopped when you said that there was a typo, and then it was kind of scratchy. So you might, if you don't mind, just maybe starting from there for everybody.
Yeah, no problem. So the water main breaks in the environmental scan that I sent out to you said that there was 65 per 100 miles, and the correct number is 60. We've averaged about 60 per 100 miles over the last 10 years, and that this number fluctuates often due to plan.
Adam, if you can hear me, you might turn off your video. Sometimes that helps. Sorry, she's still there. We'll see. I do have the PowerPoint, Steve, that I could pull up.
Yeah, so Patty, why don't we, while he's trying to get connected back up, why don't we see if there's any questions from the group at this point?
Great. So I do know that in the information that Adam had sent to you all, I mean, there was a link to the capital improvement plan and the capital improvement budget. Of course, that's not some light reading too, but Deb, you have a question.
Yeah, when Adam was going through that and was explaining about sort of expenses and revenues and talking about the property tax, I just wanted to be sure. I wasn't sure if I heard him say that property tax makes up a third of the general fund, or if property tax makes up a third of the $339 million operating budget.
Madam Secretary, it's a third of our general fund budget. So our general fund budget's about $98 million.
Yeah.
It's about a third of that general fund.
33 million or something in that neighborhood. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and Steve, while I'm asking a question on the half-cent sales tax for fixing the streets, I don't recall if there was a sunset in that.
It was a 10-year plan, and I think we're on year 1 or 2. Year 2, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Second round.
Yeah. I remember it started much earlier than that. Yeah. No. It's
Yeah, we were just authorized. This is our second year back on it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It was pointed out that we have a $339 million operating budget, but I think that's confusing to the participants. We're only talking a $98 million for general fund. Where's the rest of it? I mean, I know where some of it is, but I think that should be explained.
So the $339 million, Mr. Ledbetter, is a combination of general fund. It's our utility funds. We have a variety of funds within the city, as you know, but the 339 is a total amount.
Right, but I don't think the public realizes that about 100 of that is utilities. So I think we should break that out since we're talking about utilities as well.
What else we have?
So I guess I would make the point that we're talking specifically about infrastructure tonight, and so it's really the capital plant, right? And so operations is going to be more things like personnel costs and those kinds of things. And so we'll be talking specifically about the capital aspect of whether it's utilities or public works, and other of course departments have part of that capital planning as well. Mike.
Yeah, to follow up on what Joe said, a lot of the money that goes to infrastructure projects is not general fund dollars. There are federal and state and local grants coming in that aren't accounted for. I know the 98 million is the city side of it, but with the new funding programs coming through and the rescue plan coming through, with almost all of it eligible for utilities infrastructure, I think there are, like you said, there are other angles of this we're not even looking at.
The ARPA money and the CARES money is not part of that 339. That's correct.
So Steve said that's not part of, so those capital funding mechanisms are not part of the general fund. It's separate.
Other questions?
I have one more. How much, are we ever going to learn how much debt the infrastructure utilities programs is running right now? I mean, I know it's got to be a good number, but if we're going to be talking about how we should be spending the budget, we should probably know how much we owe already.
We'll pull those numbers for you, Mike. But right now, tonight, what we're really looking at is not a decision as to how to spend the money. It's more of what is your vision for the city so that we can approach that vision.
Correct. I just want to know them so that I can respond when, for example, about a month ago, the city council voted on how to use some surplus funds that came up, and all of them were allocated to projects, and none of it was allocated towards spending down debt. And so that's kind of why I want to know that angle. So thank you for supplying that later.
Other questions? Okay, great. So it is 4:40. And so I don't know, actually, Steve, I don't have that PowerPoint. I don't know if there's anything else that we wanted to make sure that folks knew for tonight, really kind of just giving that baseline information.
Patty, I'm looking at the PowerPoint. I think Adam covered most of it.
Okay, I mean, yeah. So again, so what we are, and I think, you know, every city, there's a lot to consider when we come to financing and budgeting, right? So there are lots of different pots of money. And so, and they have, for instance, utility rates can only be used to fund utility operating funds or infrastructure, right? And so we're looking specifically at kind of those hard costs, like if you can build it. Or if you can plan to build it, right? What does that look like? So that's what we'll kind of continue to be directing you to. And the idea is if this group comes up with priorities that they then recommend to the governing body, then the governing body makes those financing decisions, right? How do they allocate resources to achieve those priorities? Okay. So with that, y'all, we're gonna start making you work hard. We're not gonna talk at you very much more tonight. And so what I think we'll go ahead and do, so it's 4:41. Let's go ahead and take a 9-minute break. And so we encourage you to get up, move around. There's a reason for breaks, folks, and it's not to check your email or to do that kind of thing, but get up, move around, because science shows that we do better when we both use our brain and our body. So get up, move around, maybe do, you know, some sit-ups if you'd like. So yes, Joe, the chat is working. Did you have something you wanted to put in chat that we should address? Oh, you're on mute.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure that was fine. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, great. So, okay, so meet back here at 4:50, okay? And then we'll really get into the meat of things. So we know when we have most of the people here, that would be great. Wonderful. Thanks for coming back. Hope you got up and walked around a little bit. So this is, as I mentioned, this is where we really start to ask you all to do the heavy lifting. And so the first thing that we want to do is really understand what success looked like if the city was able to invest in infrastructure as you would like for it to. And so just kind of going back to this simple graphic, this is kind of where we are. What this exercise is really going to help us to identify the categories within the infrastructure priority. And then that gives us the framework for identifying the specific objectives to achieve those goal categories. So I hope that you saw in your in your agenda, your homework, was to really kind of consider if the Topeka Capital Journal was going to be writing a story in 5 years. So how is it that 5 years would be 2027? I'm not sure. Talking about all the infrastructure improvements that have been made in Topeka and really what the outcomes are for those infrastructure improvements. What would those 5 headlines be? So I'm going to ask you to take just a couple of minutes on awkward Zoom silence, which is worse than awkward in-person silence, and just kind of jot down your thoughts, and ask you to do that kind of individually if you haven't had a chance to do that already, and then we'll go from there. Rather than share those right now with the group as a whole, what we're going to be doing is placing you all into breakout groups. We're going to have three different breakout groups, and this is the group of folks that you'll be with for the duration of our time together. We'll come back as a whole, but when we have breakout groups again, these are the same folks that you'll be with. Each of the breakout rooms will have a staff facilitator, and they've introduced themselves to you already, but will introduce themselves to you again. And in your breakout groups, I want you to share with each other what your headlines are, right? What you would hope to see in 5 years in terms of real success as it relates to infrastructure. We will be sharing all of those headlines. Staff has a shared document that we'll be able to put on the screen, but we ask that you identify somebody from your group who will share the headlines, and certainly we'll be able to read them on the screen and feel free to read them all. But really, if there was kind of more discussion around the headlines, as well as where you found commonalities and what you were hoping for for infrastructure in Topeka. So with that, are there any questions regarding your assignment? The facilitators, this is their round 3 for them, workshop 3, and so they're skilled at this. But any questions before we send you to your breakout rooms? And we'll probably, Bree, what are we going to do? 12 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yeah, we usually do about 12, between 12 and 15.
Okay. And we will broadcast to you all when we're at a halfway point or so, and then when you have a couple more minutes. So with that, Bree, I think we're ready to send folks to their rooms. Welcome back, everybody. As I mentioned, we do 12 to 15 minutes usually for that, but just looking at, I just was able to pop in on one room, but kind of that conversation, and then looking at the list has been developed. I don't think there was any, doesn't look like any of the rooms were at loss for ideas. So we're going to go ahead and each breakout room is, there we go, Josh, thanks. Is going to share not just their headlines, but maybe any discussion that you had related to why those were your hopes. So with that, who is going to speak to breakout room 1's? Great, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we didn't have any problem coming up with a list. Some of our headlines are water infrastructure at 100% functionality using ARPA funds. Improve accessibility for people with disabilities across the city. The reasoning that sidewalks in many areas within the city have accessible intersections, but no sidewalks connected to them. Another headline, improve the emergency and arterial routes across the city based on pavement condition index. Low PCIs need to be reconstructed within the city and also along residential areas. Improvement of overall PCI across the city was kind of this a blanket statement. Infrastructure investments within the Neighborhood Improvement Association areas boosts home sales values by 15%. Street lighting improves the
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike. So that's studies have shown that actually when there are public improvements made in areas of town, and then that also brings private homeowners then will make some improvements, and it does actually can have that. And maybe I'm speaking to the choir there, but absolutely that can be an outcome.
And can I ask that whoever's moving the mouse thing while I'm reading, it's a little distracting. Okay, next one. Street lighting improves in neighborhoods and brings down crime rates by 15%. New position filled for city ADA accessibility compliance officer that helps provide captioning for all meetings on all platforms. Handicap accessibility for ADA when there is no sidewalk beyond, much going back to the one where there are corners, but no sidewalks connecting them. City completes first ADA accessible recreational trail. City completes improvements to North Topeka wastewater treatment plant to ensure regulatory compliance. City provides incentives to build and develop and to rehabilitate to include 25% of all units for physical access. City trains employees and public-facing service people in disability sensitivity training and accommodations for when they are working with people with disabilities. And the last one is increase the mill levy to provide additional funding for Topeka Metro Transit Authority, the bus company.
Great. I've got a few questions, maybe of clarification. Oh, Josh, were there more or?
No, that's it.
That's it. Okay. But any question either, first of all, anybody from group one, Mike's group, want to add to this in terms of kind of your conversation, or does anybody have questions related to these headlines, what we're hoping for the future? Deb.
I just was curious if I could get a clarification on the one that says city provides incentives to build or develop and to rehabilitate to include 25% of all units. And I'm not sure what units we're talking. Is this a specific?
That's for housing.
This is Joe. I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe, really quick. So Debbie, when you say that's for housing, so you mean all housing or?
Right.
Yeah, city provides incentives to build or develop or rehabilitate housing to include 25% of all units for physical access.
And does physical access, I mean, is this an ADA type issue?
Yes, accessibility, affordability, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Joe.
On the city completes first ADA recreational trail, do they mean for the county to do that? They own Parks and Rec now. So that's just a point of clarification.
I think that the county and the city could work together to get something really great started. So yeah, if it involves the county, let's add the county to the list.
Yeah, it would be a county project, so because we own the parks. So that was just what I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that we might see going forward, whether from tonight or we certainly saw it in the last couple of workshops as well, is there could be priorities that the city actually has to work with, whether it's other public partners or even, private partners as well.
Right, because my thought was that it would be something like Chunga Trail, where you work with the state and the feds to get funding for it.
Would somebody like to share kind of the information on the North Topeka wastewater treatment plant? I know that could be a whole whole report in and of itself, but why that's important, just so and maybe everybody else knows, but I'm a little unclear. So what those issues are?
Betty, I'm happy to speak to that issue. Our current permit that the EPA issued relative to the North Topeka wastewater treatment plant is now requiring the removal of phosphorus and nutrients, which are two phosphorus and nitrogen, that are two nutrients that are very damaging to public water supply. And so to ensure we are in the process of design on that project for biological nutrient removal to ensure that we come into compliance with our new standards under the NPDES permit.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that, Braxton. Also, anybody, could we kind of outline the relationship between the Topeka Metro Transit Authority and the city. Could anybody speak to that, just to make sure everybody's on this?
I'll take that one. I'm actually a board member on that board.
Okay.
We're independent of the city.
Right.
We are under the city as far as the mill levy. So that has to go through the city governing body. And I'm not going to stand opposed to money for an organization. I will say that some of the other points brought up about lengthening service, although the funds aren't there now, we are going to be looking at some kind of micro transportation that would exceed those hours and allow people to access much smaller vehicles to go longer hours. We have not done that yet. We're just in the talking stages. And I think you're going to find that we're receptive to those ideas.
Okay, so what I understand you to say is that while the transit authority is separate, it does rely on the city to levy
their authority. Their authority. They set
Yes.
our mill levy.
Okay. Yes. Okay, any other questions regarding Group 1's headlines, hopes for infrastructure? Okay, we can give them a virtual round of applause. There you go, yeah. Okay, Group 2.
I'm going to be speaking for Group 2. The headlines that we came up with were repairs for sidewalks, streets, and curb cuts to meet accessibility standards. Sustainability is the focus for infrastructure development. City moves towards sustainability and green infrastructure. City making headway towards 100-year replacement cycle. City funding half of all infrastructure improvements through alternative funding sources. Infrastructure investment has resulted in decrease in main breaks over the past 5 years. Bumpy roads, now smooth sailing. Street maintenance leads the nation in citizen satisfaction survey. Infrastructure in place to allow for more affordable, accessible, integrated housing. City increases temporary housing by 50%. City of Topeka sets standards for safe and healthy work environment for all employees. City sets sights on higher PCI goal. And city hires more people with disabilities.
Oops, I'm sorry. Anybody from Group 2 who wants to kind of comment on, or Nicole, do you want to add anything other than just the headlines that you've read, but kind of any kind of the conversations that you had in your group? That would be a no.
Have anything else to add? Anybody else from the group?
Okay, so what questions do you have of Group 2? Or questions of the clarification and what they were hoping for?
I have a question.
Please.
The city increases temporary housing by 50%. Would you define temporary housing so I know what you're trying to increase?
I believe we were discussing basic temporary housing for the homeless. I don't know whether you call it migrant population, but people that do not have permanent housing. Mission type housing, I suppose, is what we have right now.
People call every day and need housing. The only housing is the mission.
Okay, thank you. What other questions for this group? So let me ask this, city making headway towards 100-year replace or 100 replacement cycle. That needs a little bit more definition, I think. And are we talking about utilities? Are we talking about lane miles? What are we talking about there?
That one was definitely utilities.
Okay.
Industry standard is a 100-year replacement cycle. Unfortunately, we're not close to it.
Okay.
So making a way towards 100-year replacement cycle would be a huge stride for the utilities.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nicole. Any other comments or questions related to this list of headlines? Okay, round of applause, everyone. Oh. Okay. Last but not least, thank you for playing along. I appreciate it. Last but not least, we got room 3. Who's going to speak to these headlines?
I forgot to assign someone, so whoever wants to can jump in.
Got a volunteer anywhere from room 3?
Go ahead, Joe. You know Marines.
Is that okay? I'll do it.
That's fine.
Okay. Number 1, a year without a water main break, our investment is paid off. Number 2, input of the citizens is highly valued and appreciated by the City of Topeka staff. That should have an exclamation mark. City of Topeka exceeds the pavement condition target of 70. Now they're talking to PCI, so I hope everybody's following along and understands that. Topeka has made the right policy choice, fund maintenance and protect our investments. Public transportation running from 5 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. Water main breaks reduced by 20%. Water main breaks at national average. That's about 15 per 100 mile, which is what 300 other cities have. So we're definitely an outlier. Our taxes and water rates are lower than 5 years ago. Yay. City's use of half-cent sales tax has reduced maintenance costs by over 50%. 5G internet available throughout the entire city. City's winter maintenance costs reduced by 50% over 5 years through efficiency, new techniques, and no snow. So he wants global warming. Anyway, city infrastructure makes city look prosperous and well-functioning. City of Topeka in the top 10 places to live in the country. Public transportation gets every citizen to their jobs, and airport traffic increases. That's
Great.
the list.
That's the list. Yes, it is. So Joe, any conversation, were you able to have any kind of conversation around these, or anything you'd like to kind of emphasize here?
We had the public works director throw out the winter maintenance cost if you had no snow would be reduced by 50%. I don't know who the lady was that talked about city infrastructure makes Topeka look prosperous and well-functioning. I actually agreed with that on the chat. I thought that new investment in streets and just probably maintaining the codes on housing would make the city look a lot more prosperous. Anybody want to chime in? I've got a couple more I was going to comment on, but I don't want to usurp the conversation.
Anybody else from?
Joe, I would just say the lady that spoke to this infrastructure making the city of Topeka look more prosperous happened to be our former Secretary of Transportation.
Oh, Deb Miller. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Forgive me. Okay.
No problem, sir.
Thank you, Deb.
And as opposed to the city being rated in the top 10 places, I like to revise that and have the city be rated in the top 5 places.
Oh.
Exactly. Shoot for the moon.
Yes, ma'am.
So Joe had a couple other comments, and so certainly want to hear from him. But before we do, Joe, if that's okay, as you mentioned, anybody else want to comment on your discussions or hopes for? Yeah, Deb.
Well, I was just going to say, you can tell our group seemed pretty focused on water main breaks, and I was going for the moonshot with no water main breaks, but I think clearly. I just want to emphasize, I think for our city, that's really a big issue and a concern. And I live in a neighborhood that seems, we probably had 3 or 4 of them, last week after all of the bad weather.
Okay, thanks, Deb. Other comments?
Could I get clarification on the one that says airport traffic increases? Are you saying we should add more commercial air traffic, or freight traffic is taking over? Or what was the thought behind that?
So I brought that up. I mentioned the fact that in some other, we were just trying to throw out some additional discussion items out there. And my dog is trying to chime in as well. Simply that during some other more broad discussions with Shawnee County and some state folks, that airport traffic was definitely airport service, being able to provide that was a big topic of conversation at some of those discussions. So I was just throwing that out there to see if anyone locally felt passionately about that or not.
Great, thanks, Sylvia. Joe, what other comments did you have?
I wanted to highlight one of the earlier comments, if I could.
Sure.
Number two, I personally feel is very important. Input of the citizens is highly valued and appreciated by the city of Topeka staff. One of the comments I've had given to me over a number of years, probably 5 especially, is a lot of people feel like their input is not wanted. Now I realize we're doing that today, and I believe in this exercise, but I think the city staff has got to start paying attention to the public when they ask about things. For instance, the 12th Street, redoing the 12th Street. I attended a couple of those meetings. There's a lot of complaints about how it was designed, and it seemed like they had no input. So I think your best run cities listen to people. We have a wealth of ideas, and a lot of times they're very good ideas. So if the input of citizens is highly valued and appreciated by the city staff, I think that alone will move the goalpost a lot in this community. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
And that was my comment.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that. So certainly this is I was going to say exercise, but that diminishes it, I think. But what we found is that your other Topekans really do have a lot of great ideas, and that's kind of been pushing the mark for us on this, and we really appreciate that. So Joe, did you say you had one other thing you wanted to mention, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I have a couple of questions just for clarification, so everybody maybe is on the same page here. So Topeka has made the right policy choice: fund maintenance and protect our investments. When I read that, I hear, and I don't know that this is accurate, so I'm asking the question. I hear, let's maintain what we have. Is it before or in addition to building new? I don't know what that headline's supposed to indicate.
So if it's okay, I'll jump in because that was mine. And I wouldn't say it's, maintenance first, because there's so much that needs to be reconstructed in the city, but as we reconstruct, we keep up with the maintenance.
Gotcha.
So it's really easy to get excited about spending money to do new work, and not as exciting to spend the money to maintain the work that you did. And my intention, if awkwardly stated.
Oh, no. Thank you, Deb. I appreciate that. Another question I had was if somebody could share the use of the half-cent sales tax has reduced the maintenance cost by over 50%.
What was that?
The use of the half-cent sales tax has reduced the maintenance costs by over 50%. And I might be being too literal here, but yeah, go ahead, James.
Well, that's really speaking to the manner in which we prioritized our street maintenance activity over the next 5 years and how we actually address it. For instance, we know that out of the full 640 or 13 or 1,400 lane miles that we have throughout the city, over 65% of it are residential, and the remaining 35% fall between our arterial and collectors. And it just speaks to being able to wisely utilize those funds to do a worst first case assessment and application of those funds.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Of course, I had several other questions or comments. we see anything that that was, oh,
Patty,
please, Terry.
Terry.
Yep. Thank you, Bree. Yeah, Terry.
Thank you. I just wanted to champion what Deb Miller said about maintenance. You know, even in our Parks and Rec, we have this discussion that unfunded maintenance comes back to haunt you. In our case, it could be, you know, safe slides or something like that. But I don't think it is easier to get the shiny object, the new thing. But I concur that maintenance funding should always be a priority so that you can maintain what you already have to serve the public. So I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Other comments or questions? So what I'm seeing here is there's a lot that you folks want to have done, right? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you guys another break. Staff and I are going to convene to kind of take a look at these headlines and identify perhaps categories within which then we can actually put specific so goal categories, we can put specific objectives. And so we're going to be jumping into a separate Zoom room and ask you to come back, if you would please, at, let's see, staff, what do you think? 5:47?
Yeah, Patty,
Yes.
before we jump out,
Yes.
if you got it, let me
Thank you.
real quickly
Yep,
try
please.
to answer Mike's question from earlier.
Yes.
The question, as I understood it, was what's our current level of debt with utilities? That's about $363 million. And we spend about $24 million in debt service. So I'm trying to answer his question.
Was that 24 million, Steve?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I'd forgotten you said you had that. So Mike, does that answer your question then? Is anything follow up or?
That's a good enough start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll do 5:49. So we'll come back. Okay, so we'll be back at 5:49 and then we're going to be diving deeper into these issues. So we'll see you then. We get a couple more folks with their cameras on. Thank you, everyone. Oh, Josh, gotta let Josh back in. Welcome back. Okay, so what our task, so it was Steve and Josh and Adam and I, and so what our task really was to look at your hopes for your community when it comes to infrastructure, and then see if we, and I hope you see again what we're doing is we're trying to give a framework for, thank you, Josh, a framework for establishing the goals, okay? So as you'll see in this document, what we did is, first of all, the first goal, and what we want to do is tell you what we're suggesting, get your feedback, and go from there. So the first goal would be Topeka is accessible to all. And the reason that we came up with, oh, Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, could you blow that up for the blind among us?
Yes, I'm with you. Thank you, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Josh and Adam are young, so right? So we thank you for asking for that. Yeah. Thank you. That's even better. Appreciate it. So Topeka is accessible to all. And so this would include specifics, right? So we're asking you to get more specific now on, and it's very possible that you're going to take some of those things that we already talked about and again, put them within this category. But so that would include our discussion about ADA. It could include public transportation. It could include the engagement of citizens and the staff reception to it. Deb, did you have a comment or?
Could you blow it up a little bit more?
Josh? Can you get a little bit bigger for those?
Is that good?
if need be, you could turn off, Deb, you could turn off your video and go real close. So again, Topeka is accessible to all, and this would encompass goals related to things like, as I mentioned, ADA, public transportation, sidewalks, citizen engagement, friendly staff, etc. Okay, we're giving you those as examples to show you how we came up with that goal. You do not have to be limited by those words in the parentheses. Okay. Then moving towards sustainable infrastructure. And so we heard issues related to broadband and internet connectivity, housing and developing infrastructure that would support affordable housing, green infrastructure. So all those kinds of specifics would have been included here. And then protect our investments. So really looking at streets. We heard a lot about PCI and how that measure is used to identify what improvements should be made to streets. We also heard that water line breaks are an issue that we really need to make improvements on. So that would be included. Those kinds of things would be included in this goal. We did then have a discussion about financing, right? And so that's a big, like, you can't talk about infrastructure without talking about financing. What we did not include that here because we felt like financing could be pieces. And if you look actually at the more specifics that the governing body identified, it really was about master planning, looking for comprehensive solutions, and having adequate funding. Okay. We felt like financing could be pieces of each of these three. We also are considering that there's a work group that will be specifically addressing sustainable financing. Excuse me, what is it called? I apologize. Improving fiscal sustainability and good governance. So we wanted to let you know why we did not include that. However, we are open for discussion on each of these three, as well as if there needs to be any additional goal that could be financing or something else that we maybe have missed. So questions or comments related to these three goals before we go forward? Did we hit it, folks? Did we miss anything as you think about? Deb, please.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think you've done a nice job, and broadly, I'm sure there can still be some wordsmithing, but I like the language.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Others. So folks, we take being quiet as total approval. But again, can you see specific goals that you want to put down in each of these categories?
So I have a question. Are we going to do breakout groups on this, or this?
We are.
Discussion?
Nope, we are going to do breakout groups, and then we'll come back.
So you want our ideas now, or you want to wait till we do the breakout groups?
Breakout groups. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, breakout groups. All right. Just want to make sure we have again, we're building the structure. So we've got infrastructure. Now we've got these three goals. And then now what are more specifics, objectives that we want within those?
Patty, these are kind of loose as far as goals go. Not that they're not important or they haven't hit the mark, but I think goals, more like
SMART goals.
Yeah, SMART goals.
Yeah.
And these aren't really falling into that.
No, they're not. So, of course, now I lose the acronym. Specific, measurable, attainable,
realistic and time
realistic bound. And time bound. Thank you. Yep. So, Mike, absolutely, that is how really measurable goals should be identified, right? I will tell you that we don't have all of the information necessary to identify SMART goals this evening, if that makes sense. And so the city has, as you will have seen in the environmental scan, the city does track performance measures. And so we'd have to have, for this discussion, we'd have to have, let's say water main breaks are a performance measure, right? So it's at X amount. We want to reduce it to this, and that's how we know we have achieved success. So it's going to be a little still, we're not going to get there tonight, Mike, is what I'm telling you. Okay. Happy to talk about that a little bit more, but I don't know if Steve wants to talk about how, Deb, did you have?
Well, as you were just having that discussion, I mean, it occurred to me, when we look at these goals, in some ways, these are sort of aspirational. And I don't quite know what all the city's planning to do, but I could picture a process where the city takes the feedback we've given them that's kind of created some aspirational goals. And then maybe they create a secondary set of, as you said, like SMART goals that put you on the track of accomplishing the aspirational goal. Just.
Yeah, Deb, that's very well put. I mean, we're trying to get a general sense of direction or desired direction. And then we'll take that input and work with it from there.
Great question, Mike. Thank you for that. Any other questions before we go to breakout rooms? So we are going to be going to great breakout rooms. This is your opportunity to get more specific. Okay. I mean, if there is a specific project that you want done, a specific category of projects that you want done, a specific study you want done, a specific, it's your opportunity to get more specific. So as Deb said, we're going from aspirations to how do we achieve those aspirations. And so in each of your breakout rooms, again, you'll have an opportunity. It's much like we did before, have an opportunity to talk with your fellow Topekans about what you hope to achieve. And then what we'll be doing is, and the facilitators know this, each of you will start on the goal associated with your breakout room. And please know, we didn't land on 3 just because we've had 3 breakout rooms. The previous 2 workshops, I think we had 5 with the same number of breakout rooms. So we're trying to do what makes sense and not what's easy, because frankly, none of this is easy, right? And so you'll have more time during your first discussion than you will in the second or third, because you will see that you will be adding to the list, not creating it from scratch when we do the rotations. Okay. So with that, if there are no other questions, Bree, if you would open the breakout rooms, that would be great. So I wanted to I'm going to ask actually the staff facilitators if you could just let me know, were you guys able not only to finish your group discussion, each individual category, but also were you able to go back through and look at the entire list? Adam says yes. Yeah, everybody. Josh, Kalea. Josh, yes. Gretchen, yes. Okay, great. Okay, so there is a lot there. And I'm happy to, Steve, shall we do what we did on Monday night, kind of just bring up the entire and kind of go through there? And we're not going to go through each, since you've already had an opportunity to look through them as you were both working on them and just kind of your final review. I'm not going to go through each and every possibility. However, I will probably, thank you. I will probably make some comments in terms of themes I'm seeing. And I'm happy to do that. However, I welcome kind of your quick analysis or reflection on what you're seeing in each of these categories. So the first one is Topeka is accessible to all. And again, this was everything from public transportation to ADA to community engagement when it comes to infrastructure. So anybody want to comment on kind of what stands out to you in terms of kind of commonalities here? No one? I mean, certainly, we see a lot of, I think, issues with sidewalks.
Patty, Mike has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Mike. Thank you.
It's okay. A lot, not everything, but a lot of these things on this first section are directly related to people where they live. It's housing, it's streets, it's parking, it's gutters, it's drainage. It's got nothing to do with interstates. It has nothing to do with anything like that. The things that people are asking for tend to come a lot closer to home than I think gets discussed at a city council kind of level when it comes to funding decisions.
Well put, Mike. And so, and in some ways, I mean, it really ties back to that kind of maintain what we have, right? And so if I'm driving around my neighborhood, I want to make sure my streets are safe, or I want to make sure that my water lines don't break, or that I have that affordable housing. And so you don't see kind of a big flashy project here is kind of the community base. That's well put, Mike. Thank you. Other reflections on this particular category? What about questions? Are there any questions? Any way we can make that a little bit bigger, Josh or Adam, whoever's driving? I don't know who's driving. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and go to category 2. And so this was sustainable infrastructure. So Topeka moves towards the sustainable infrastructure. Any ahas or reflection here? Keep on moving my mouse as if I was able to move it.
On the
I'll see if, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Just a quick one on the SORT program one. There's also a DREAMS program. Could we add that so that they're both there?
SORT and DREAMS. And Mike, can you explain what those are, please?
Sure. SORT is a biannual funding opportunity for NIA neighborhoods. It usually
encapsulate what you said. You kind of my end.
Oh, sorry. Sure. SORT is a opportunity for NIAs to better themselves through planning and construction. DREAMS, it's the same concept, but it comes at it from the resident's point of view and bringing things to the community that people can do with the help of the city and the city's staff.
So programs that are already in place, but let's go ahead and enhance them. Is that what you're saying, Mike?
Sure. In a nutshell, yeah. I mean, they run tandem. They're very close to each other. They have 2 different names.
And are those Topeka programs like created by Topeka and funded by Topeka?
Right. The SORT program has been in existence for many years. The DREAMS program was something that came up in a neighborhood initiatives work group that we put together and proposed to the city. And so now they're incorporating that piecemeal as we go.
Yeah, so this is, there's really a broad kind of array of possible goals here, everything from infill development to using solar to broadband to different kinds of zoning to allow for, So we can have 5G towers close to neighborhoods, right? But not close to airports, apparently. So any other reflections or ahas, questions? Okay, folks, I know that you all chatted in your work groups because I breakout rooms, So, okay, let's go ahead and go to the third one.
We used up all of our words, Patty.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Deb. And I'm never at a loss for words, right? People want me to just be quiet. So, so life cycle planning is mentioned here as well as in goal 2. So really understanding and back to let's take care of our investments, right? So it's not just about building it, it's about maintaining it and protecting that investment. So really understanding what that looks like. What else here? This is one I have not looked at all, had an opportunity to look at a lot yet. Deb, please.
Well, I just had a clarification question, and it's the bullet point that says getting an understanding of all the infrastructure there when large-scale projects like Polk Quincy. I didn't understand what that meant. I was wondering if anybody could clarify it.
So that was my group. Someone from my group wants to explain this one.
I think there was lots of aspects to it, both just moving or straightening out of a highway isn't done in a vacuum. You have to be aware of buildings, facilities, roads that have to be updated, utility lines that are underground that have to be moved due to this project, this idea.
Yeah, it's actually a very big impact, redoing that project. But thank you very much. That was a good explanation.
So, and I have a question related to the, and I apologize, I don't know how the half-cent sales tax is used at this point. And then the one below that says, explain it. So is that a sales tax that's already dedicated to infrastructure? Is it a general sales tax? How does that fall?
It's for street maintenance.
Okay, so it's already dedicated.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so but perhaps it's explaining to the public how it's used. And that's the one that is a sunset provision?
That's correct.
So it would be really important that the public understands what it's for, maybe what the city has already promised, how it's been used, in hopes that it would then be reapproved, renewed, I guess is the word I was looking for. Okay. Okay, anything else? Somebody want to comment on the coordination of utility and public works projects? I have an idea of what that means, but and why it would be listed, but anybody else want to share on that? So don't make improvements to the street and then come in and replace the water line. Do the water line first, and then is that?
So that was also my group.
Okay.
We had quite a few city staff, like public works, utilities, and that sort of thing in my group. So if someone in my group wants to answer that again.
My connection cut out. Can you repeat the question?
So I thought I understood that the issue is in terms of coordinating utilities and public works, like don't build a road and then come in and do a water plant, a water main improvement. I mean, so having that coordination.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Working together.
Against that too.
I wanted exclamation points. They said use asterisks.
Don't do projects solely because they're next on the list. So really kind of that annual evaluation, right? I mean, because sometimes priorities do change. And use, data-driven asset management. Okay, nice. Other questions or comments related to this particular goal category? Okay, you can stop sharing, Josh or Adam. I don't know who was doing it. Thank you so much for doing that. But so there's a lot of work here, and there's also a lot of silence. I'm not sure how to take that. It could just be that you're like looking at it being maybe a little bit overwhelmed with all the possibilities there. But what we will do now is take your list, and we will kind of condense it in what I hope looks like it makes sense to you. Tomorrow, we will send out this raw list. Nothing will be lost. You will have everything that you've identified on the list. And then you will have a companion set of prioritization questions. You should be able to take a look at kind of the condensed list and say, oh yeah, I see how that fits. Okay, we don't want to lose anything. We'll give you, like I said, a few days to actually complete that polling, and then we will be providing the results back to you so that you understand kind of where this group fell in terms of what the priorities are. We will also be using that to inform our discussion on March 10th. Again, we're inviting everybody back on March 10th to be with all of the work groups. And with that, Steve, any other housekeeping items, Steve, that I need to?
No, just thanks very much for everybody's time. We had you booked till 8 and trying to be respectful of your time. Obviously we have the work that you guys have put out is plentiful. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, and we just want to be respectful of your time. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we go?
Good question.
Yes.
Are we going to be able, as a group, as an infrastructure group, will we see each other's amalgamated responses before we walk into that March 10th meeting?
Yes, you will.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You'll also see there, because there is crossover, this happens all the time. So there's crossover, frankly, among, we've done neighborhoods, quality of life, and now infrastructure. Of course, there's crossover among those groups. And one of the things I'm trying to do is, for instance, if there is a sidewalk goal, as there would be from tonight, there's also one in, I think, both quality of life and neighborhoods. And so trying to use the same language so we can kind of see where those fall when we compare from one group to the other. And it's possible that, well, I'm not going to say that because I don't know. I still don't know what that agenda looks like for March 10th, because frankly, we didn't know what we were going to end up with, from each of these work groups. And so trying to figure out again, how to get enough information to people to have before that March 10th meeting, to have solid information, a good understanding of how the process went and what the priorities were within each of the work groups. So stay tuned on that as well.
Yeah.
Braxton, did you have a question? Oh, no, that was my hand, some weird cursor on my screen. So sorry.
Patty,
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would share one thing here. Having gone through these type exercises before, and for the benefit of the group, if we were not in a pandemic state, part of what you would be seeing would be a lot of sticky notes around ideas that we all have had an opportunity to share on. And you would see a lot of the same type comments being made, where Patty would actually be consolidating those ideas so that when they, as the organizing group, do bring it back to you, you're going to see several, if not more, of those ideas were saying the same thing. They were just saying them in a different way.
Exactly.
You see when you see the results, you'll be able to see your input from that perspective. And I just wanted to share that with a group so that everyone would understand how their efforts have actually contributed to the end result here. And Patty, I think that's why no one had anything else to say. The comments were exhausted.
No, there was amazing. Like the list, it just blows me away. So yeah, thank you for that, James. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, please watch for emails tomorrow, and then subsequently you will get the results of this evening's conversation, and we look forward to seeing you again on March 10th. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.